welcome to the Astrology and Spirituality show for week commencing the 11th of October. Now, this week does see a major event on Monday, and that is that strict Saturn ends its long retrograde, which began on the 23rd of May. So during that time, the kind of frustrations and limitations that we've all collectively been feeling are a lot to do with the fact that Uranus, the planet of freedom, has been chaffing in its right angle with the retreating Saturn. So I think when it comes to sort of trying to progress forwards, the fact that the mighty Pluto went direct last week, and at the very end of this week, Mercury and Jupiter will prepare to go forwards a week Monday on the 18th, then we're all going to see things start to speed up. But there is still a big conjunction between the Sun and Mars, which has been very dominant recently. Now, some people would say that Mars in Libra is weak. I don't actually agree with that. Yes, technically it's in detriment, but it's still Mars. It's just putting greater emphasis on how we relate. And so I think the combination between those two and the square with Pluto does point towards some politics around relationships still. So it's about setting our boundaries. It's not being browbeaten by somebody who's using sort of a heavy-handed approach, but it's also trying to be as honest and straightforward in the way that we relate as we possibly can. And of course, with Mercury, the planet of relating, in the sign of relating, in retreat still for the rest of this week, choosing our words carefully continues to be important. But I think Saturn going forwards is something to definitely celebrate. Now, in terms of the Hermetic Wheel, how are we doing with that? We're still in the swords territory, are we?
We are. We've still got a good few weeks until we're out of, in my opinion, some of the most difficult swords. So until Wednesday this week, we're still in the Three of Swords, which we talked about last week, which is feeling some sort of loss, grief, maybe even betrayals or betrayals from the past coming back up, where we are recounting them and feeling, a little sad, really. But then on Wednesday, we move into the Four of Swords. So still swordy.
Just goes from jolly to jolly,
But the Four of Swords is more about exhaustion, is the word that I would link to the Four of Swords. And so when it comes up, if we are feeling tired, drained, exhausted, which I know I have lately, and I think that is a lot to do.
You haven't been well, though. And
no.
You have had a tummy upset.
I have, so that's
But you
true.
think it might also be to do with something else?
Yeah, I think it's to do with the season
Right.
shifting. It's
Okay.
definitely a big thing for me. It's getting darker earlier, but we're not quite in autumn or fall, as you would say.
And of course, if you're in the southern hemisphere, it's the reverse.
Mm-hmm.
You're entering into the spring. But there is a safety, isn't there, about being in the winter, because it's rather like being in our mother's womb.
Yes.
When we come into the light, we come into the spring, it's a sudden dazzling reawakening, and that transition can be quite challenging as well. Joyful for many, challenging for others. So some people really like the leaves falling in the northern hemisphere. Some people might feel the end of a brighter, lighter time. Certainly where we're living now, the weather, as you can see today, is still absolutely fantastic. But it has, the light here, because we're in such a small village, it really just completely goes very, very quickly. And there's very little street lighting. So this week we went for a walk, and the view of the constellations particularly was just
incredible.
Yeah.
I've never seen the sky so clear, because I've always lived in areas where there's
Quite
a lot
urban.
of urban light pollution, air pollution. So to actually see the stars was quite awe-inspiring. So yeah, with that Four of Swords, let's focus on maybe just doing very gentle things, very healing things, not pushing ourselves to be like reaching every target going. If we haven't got the energy, we haven't got the energy. We've just got to do what we can.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant advice. So in terms of the word for the week, we did have one suggested, but if you would have a word for the week that you'd like to suggest for a week commencing the 18th, please just enter it underneath this YouTube video, and we'd be more than happy to select one. But we have one, and it's Gaia, is that right? And this is from Anima. Thank you again. She calls us Little Ted and Big Ted, so that's really nice
yeah,
of
that's
you.
really sweet.
And so what's your take on Gaia then?
Well, Gaia, or also you can pronounce it Gaia, whichever, a lot of people say it differently. I like the mythology behind things. I'm a bit of a mythology enthusiast, I suppose you would call it. I'm not an expert, but I enjoy it. So in that sense, Gaia is the very original god, if you like. She's said to have no parents, or if she has, it's chaos. So it's that instinctive Mother Earth. It's what gives everything life. Her consort is Uranus, meaning the sky. And with Uranus, she bore children, the Titans, who then went on to have the Olympians. So she's the very first creator, and we live on her. It's kind of the idea that the earth, and it's true, is a living, breathing organism of its own. Mythology and religions have always, going back thousands of years, have always believed that, and now we know that that is true. It's a living thing, and we are allowed to live on her. And so to do that, we've got to sort of give back to her and protect her. Otherwise, she can rebel.
So it's raising consciousness, really, because obviously fuel, there is a fuel crisis in the UK, at least, and the resources of the earth are finite. And of course, the people who control the resources are using those resources in quite playing hardball, basically, which is very much to do with that Mars conjunct Sun in the 7th house of a negotiation. But also, there are in the United Kingdom green tariffs that are put onto electricity and gas bills as well, in order to try to redress the balance towards those more natural resources. So painful time with costs going up, and we're really conflicted about how we're going to deal with that. So time to don more jumpers and wrap up warmer, and perhaps being less dependent on just thinking, well, we can just put the central heating on. Perhaps it's not great. This is definitely not great for those who don't have very well insulated houses or aren't very well. But if we can try to manage the reality of the situation by being a bit more conscious of how we use energy, that's probably something we can do towards this situation. Thank you. So now we do have the birthday winner. So the birthday natal chart analysis and solar return analysis is Lauren, who is from Trinidad and Tobago and was born in St. Joseph's. Now, there was also another entrance, David. So David, we're very sorry, but what I'm going to do is send you a free 12-month forecast. I'll send that to you after the show goes live. But Lauren is the winner. And the reason we chose Lauren is because she is 40 on the first day of this week, on the 11th. So with no further ado, I'll don the old specs and let's have a look and see what we've got. Now, I should just say, if you'd like to enter, your birthday should be between the 18th and the 24th of October, any year backwards. Please don't enter your birthday. It's not within that time frame, because we just won't select it. It's because we want to make it topical, to the show. So, Lauren, well, congratulations for your birthday this week. So happy 40th to you. When you were born, you had that wonderful clustering of energy in the sign of Libra, and you also had Saturn there. But Saturn is actually exalted in the sign of Libra, so it's a good place to have it, but it's very close to the Sun, and in turn the Sun is very close to Jupiter, in turn very close to Pluto. So when people have Jupiter and Pluto closely aligned in their chart, they're often quite successful with money, but you have Saturn on the Sun, and all of this is in the 6th house. So I think it's likely that you've had to work very, very hard, but you're someone with a great fairness about how you go about things, but also you have an attention to detail, and I think you like being very productive. That gives you a sense of enrichment. but you also have a clustering of energy in the sign of Scorpio, and that's all in the 7th house. And so you have an appreciation of working with people. Your ascendant is Taurus, so I think over the last couple of years there probably has been some pushes for you to change things up a little bit. And your 10th house is in Capricorn, so at the moment you do have Pluto right at the top of your chart, so that points towards the potential for changes around your work. And also the position of Pluto in your natal chart did square up to your 10th house cusp when you were born. So I think you're someone who perhaps at times experienced people who maybe even felt a little bit threatened by what you had to offer professionally. But I think something's changing for you in that department, and I think it's possible that you can do very well over the next year. And the reason for that is that on your solar return, your 10th house is moved to Libra and your ascendant to 0 degrees in Capricorn. 0 degrees Capricorn is a really critical point because it means when the winter solstice occurs, it's going to electrify this first house cusp, and it's known as an earth point. So very important for you resetting and moving forwards. And it's just that you have the Sun, Mars and Mercury all conjunct, all in the 10th house in Libra. But where your Libran planets have been battered about 2 years ago, you really went through a tough time, I think. Well, now you're free of that, and you can really start to demonstrate to people how talented you are. So there's another thing to tell you about. So if we put your solar return and your natal chart together, what I can see from that is that the position of Mars and the Sun is conjunct your natal Jupiter in the 6th house. So I think a new job is coming this year, or a new way of living your life that's a bit more ordered, that's going to work out very productively for you. I'm just looking around. Let's just have a look at your midpoint. Your midpoint in your natal chart is 7 degrees Capricorn. So you're someone who is, very attuned to putting in that hard work. Even though relating is important to you and you like to get on with people, you're someone who's seen as being very industrious, and I think that wins you a lot of respect. Now, you do have Mars, I should just tell you, in the sign of Leo. So that's a glorious position for Mars because it gives it a lot of confidence there, but it's in the 4th house. So you also have the node there. So I think your deep home and deep family life, very, very important to you. But your midpoint is 7 degrees in Capricorn and it's in the 9th house. So it wouldn't be a complete surprise if you have travelled or lived abroad at times in your life. But I understand that you are in Trinidad and Tobago at the moment. So your solar return midpoint is 23 degrees Scorpio. So if we go back to look at your natal chart, pardon me, so that makes it exactly conjunct your part of fortune on your solar return. So I do think that this year can be very positive and progressive for you. So thank you very much for entering, Lauren, and happy birthday. Have a lovely day. Can only imagine what it must be like there. Absolutely idyllic. And so anyone else who would like to enter, please feel welcome to do so. Now, in terms of the modality for this week, what are you going to go for?
Well, following on from Anima's word of the week, which was Gaia, I thought it'd be nice if we used the Gaia Oracle cards.
You haven't used these for ages.
Not for a really long time.
You used to use these with the Daily Show, didn't you?
They're so beautiful because they have like this sacred heart in the middle, which always makes me think of that Christ consciousness. So even though they're Gaia cards, I kind of feel they have a really good mixture of masculine and feminine energies. So
okay,
let's see what they have to say for us. Do you want to pick?
Okay, thank you.
Oh, that's lovely. The words on this card is eternal love. and it says happiness, harmony, and fulfillment. This idea of this eternal love. It's funny because it has like this rainbow effect on, but it also looks like a red string. And in some cultures, there is something known as the red string of fate, where when we're born, we are kind of attached to certain people in our lives with this invisible red string, and it kind of, we meet them at certain points in our lives, and it's supposed to help us fulfill our destiny. And I always like that kind of idea.
That's lovely. I kept getting this email message from this guy who claimed it was a string, and he just kept pestering me with these emails, so in the end I told him to get knotted.
We haven't had
a dad joke.
Many dad jokes, have we?
A granddad joke.
But yeah, this idea of eternal love, love everlasting, love does go beyond just the physical. Because there are people that are passed over in all of our lives that we still love them. The love is still there. It doesn't go anywhere. It's scientifically proven that once energy is created, it cannot be destroyed. So every single one of our bodies has an energetic pulse. That goes somewhere. That love goes somewhere. And this is just a reminder that it is eternal.
Oh, that's so lovely. So I think that pretty well wraps up the show for this week. And we're going to try and get down the beach for one last time. Obviously, it is colder, and because Elisa hasn't been very well, so we're not quite sure if we're going to go in for a swim, but I have got my trunks on and nothing else.
Make sure.
And so we're going to dash off and see if we can catch a little bit of this beautiful autumnal sun as it is here in beautiful Cymru. And thank you so much for joining us. Have a brilliant week. And from the A-Team, it is...
Goodbye from him.
And it's goodbye from her. Goodbye.